Tell me if this sounds familiar. I know I shouldn't do it, but the Bible doesn't say I can't do it. Well, and I want to do it, so I'm gonna do it. Well, hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to my channel. It is so good to be back here making videos with you once again. And today I want to talk about temptations, gray areas, and just what does it mean to live a thoroughly Christian life and to grow in our faith and in our walk with Jesus. And I think for so many of us, we find ourselves in situations where we experience this tension between what we feel we ought to do, what we probably know we ought to do, and yet what we want to do. It's like there is a war waged within us. And actually, Paul uses that very language in Romans. And there's actually a paradox at the center of the Christian teaching on who we are. Because in one sense, we are a new creation. The old has gone, the new is here. In one sense, we have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer us who live, but Christ who lives in us. We have been baptized into his death and raised with him. We experience newness of life. But yet, there's also sin that is still waging a war inside of us. Our flesh, as the New Testament language talks about, our flesh desires that which is contrary to God. And so what we feel we know we should do and what we ought to do is often different. And it creates this difficult situation. And probably you've experienced this where you feel this struggle inside of you, and then you try to just say, well, maybe I can do this. Is this a gray area? And you feel these temptations, and it's difficult. And I'm there with you. And if you're experiencing that, you do not have something wrong with you. It's not like your conversion has been deficient. This is a reality of the Christian life. But what ought we do in these situations, and how do we navigate this? Funny enough, the actual inspiration from this video came from all things a television show my parents were watching the other day, and I don't even think I was watching it. I think I was reading a book. But in it, and it was Chicago PD, one of the characters, who's like this senior police officer, is giving advice to a younger officer who had just really messed up, who had done what they wanted to do, but definitely not what they should do. And he looks at her and he says, "It's simple. It's not easy, but it's simple." And the thing is, it's the same for us. It's simple. It's not easy, not by any means, but it is simple. You see, so often we find ourselves in these situations where it seems like a gray area. The Bible doesn't say specifically that we can't do it and thou shalt not do this, but there's something in us that says this probably isn't quite right. And in these situations, I want to tell you that the answer, well, it's quite simple. It's not easy because I know that the flesh, its desires are strong. Our wills are strong to do that which is not right. It's not easy, but it's simple. And here on this channel, Gospel Simplicity, I'm really passionate about the simplicity of the gospel. You see, because I think where we go wrong on this is the fact that we often think of sin in really unhelpful terms. We think of sin only as doing that which God said we shouldn't do, which is true in part, but doesn't capture the full biblical picture of what sin is. In fact, in an earlier video, like way earlier, one of the first videos I ever made, it's probably super cringy, but you can watch it, when it's called Stop Asking If Everything's a Sin, I talk about the fact that the biblical vision of sin is actually much bigger and more holistic than we often think. In the Bible, the Hebrew word for sin can actually be used to describe someone who shoots a bow and misses the mark. They're off target. And you see, that is actually at the core of the idea of sin, that sin is missing the mark. God has created us to experience life and to live in a certain way, and to sin is to miss the mark of that. And that vision of sin gives us something much bigger than just not doing what God says to do or not do. It's actually living the kind of life that God has called us to live. And I believe this is actually at the heart of Paul's argument in Romans, which I was just reading earlier today. In Romans, it'll blow your mind. You can eat through that book for years and years and years and just chew on it. There's so much there. But Paul talks about the fact that we are not under the law, but we are under the Spirit. And it's actually that we are now enabled, we are set free to live as slaves to righteousness. We are free now to live in accordance with the way God has created us to live. In doing so, we fulfill the law. And so what we really want to look at here is we're not looking for a list of do's and don'ts. We're not looking, well, God hasn't technically said I can't do this, so I guess I'm going to do it. What we want to ask instead is, what would most glorify God? What is the decision that Jesus would do? You know, like the old WWJD bracelets, like bring that back. Not the bracelets, but the question. What would Jesus do? What is the right thing? And oftentimes we know. It's, in fact, usually pretty simple. Oftentimes it's not easy, but we know that the decision that we're tempted to do, or the thing we're tempted to do, or that gray area we're wrestling through, well, we know that it's probably not what brings God the most glory. You know, I love the Westminster Shorter Catechism answer to what is the chief end of man? Like, what's our purpose? And it's to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. And that's so true. That is our chief end. So what if we lived with that? I want to give you this picture as we close out here. So often we try to tiptoe our way through temptation, trying not to step over the line, but we want to get as close to the line as possible. Oftentimes this comes out in the kind of questions we ask, like, can I do this and it not be a sin? How close can I get to this thing that I know I shouldn't do without sinning? But really, rather than tiptoeing through temptation, we should be running towards righteousness. You see, because when we just tiptoe through, what we're really revealing is that our hearts aren't fully given over to God. What we're really revealing is that we actually worship this other vision of what is best, and it's from ourselves. We think we know what is best rather than what God says. So we just say, you know, how can I appease God while kind of keeping Him happy, but really doing as much of what I want as possible? But the Christian vision is that of dying to ourselves, putting to death the desires of our flesh, and living for God. That is what we're called to be baptized into His death, as Romans talks about. It is to come to resurrected life with Jesus, where we die to our sins and live for righteousness. So rather than tiptoeing through temptation, we run towards righteousness. Rather than trying to find where the line is, we look to the horizon and see all of the fullness that God is calling us into. In so doing, we live out that vision of glorifying God and enjoying Him forever. We should be asking, what decision would be most glorifying to God, and run after that. And we'll find that while it's not always easy, it is simple. God's rules aren't just these arbitrary things that He's saying, don't do this, and it's really out of touch, but we kind of just do it because He says so. God's rules, they're there to bring us life. He, as creator and designer of life, He knows that which is best for us, and He's calling us to live into that. And so, let us live into that. In that we will find life, just as Jesus said that He came that we might have life and have it to the full. I pray that you would step into this. Don't tiptoe through temptation wondering, is this a gray area? How far can I go? Don't tiptoe through temptation, but run towards righteousness. You can do it, and you will experience life as you were created to experience if you do so. I know it might not be easy, but it is simple. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Truly, that means so much to me. I hope it brought clarity to you. I hope it brings encouragement to you. And I want to thank all of you out there who have subscribed to this channel, who are a part of this, and who are commenting, liking, and sharing these videos with your friends. When you see one that you think, oh, this person could really benefit from that, and you're passing along to them, just thank you for that. That means so much to me, and I hope that these videos are a blessing to you. This is not about growing some brand for me, but this is about bringing content to you that is helpful and helps you grow in your faith. So if it's doing that, that is such an honor and is a privilege that God would allow me to be used by Him in such a way. And if you are new to this channel and you're considering being a part of this, this is Gospel Simplicity, a place where we're passionate about the beautiful simplicity and transformative power of the gospel, the good news about Jesus that is truly good news. So if you want to be a part of that, I encourage you to hit subscribe to be on this journey with us. But until next time, guys, I encourage you to be on the lookout for more videos. And as always, and most importantly, go out and love God and love others, because truly, above all else, that will change the world. Peace. Love you guys so much. See you next time.